Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. And today we're going to be looking at how your language impacts your brain. So imagine that this is me in profile, except if you were to look, I have a less pointy nose, I hope. But every second we have 2 million pieces of information coming at us. 2 million. So that's 2 million, 2 million, 2 million, 2 million, 2 million. So in that 5 seconds, 10 million pieces of information just got stored in your unconscious mind. Now consciously, we only become aware of 134 pieces of that information. And we further chunk that 134 into 7 plus or minus 2 chunks. So there's a lot of information that's not getting through to us. So how do we go from 2 million to 134? Well, we delete some information. So for example, you probably don't think about how your feet feel in your shoes or in your socks until I've just said it. You're probably not thinking about how your phone feels in your hand, or how your bum feels against the chair, how your shirt feels against your shoulder. Those are signs and examples of things that we delete on a day-to-day basis. If somebody was to walk in the room that you're sitting on wearing a horrendous perfume or cologne, or any perfume or cologne, you would smell it for the first couple minutes, and then the smell would be gone. Not because the smell molecules have disappeared, they're still in the air. The difference is that your brain has deleted it as an option. Now the other thing that we do is we distort information. So we distort information to match the beliefs that we currently have. Now, this is how stereotypes get perpetuated. And I'm going to use a typical stereotypical example, but I don't believe this to be true, obviously. So let's say that you have somebody who believes that all women are terrible drivers. Clearly we're not, but let's just use that example. Now, if this person drives past an accident and they see a woman standing there, they will distort how they see that incident to make the woman the driver and to further perpetuate the belief that all women are terrible drivers. This is why, the reason that we distort information, if you were to go to an accident and have 10 eyewitnesses, you could potentially get 10 different colors of the vehicle depending on what their experience is and what their belief systems are. The last thing that we do is we generalize information. So I grew up in Canada, and after I finished university, I moved to Australia for 8 years. Now, if I didn't have the ability to generalize information, I would have had to learn how to drive all over again because their cars and trucks look different, and because the steering wheel is on the other side of the car and they drive on the other side of the road. But because I had the ability to generalize, I just had to make some adjustments to how I drive. Now, how do we determine what gets deleted, what gets distorted, and what gets generalized? Well, I'm so glad you asked, because I know that's what you're thinking. In our brain, we have what's called a reticular activating system, or a RAS for short. Now, our reticular activating system is the filtering system in our brain. So it will filter out anything that matches our beliefs and our experiences. It'll filter in, anything that matches our experiences and beliefs, and it'll filter out anything that doesn't match. So let's say our beliefs and our filters are set there. Now, the best example I can give you of a reticular activating system is when you buy a car. So when I was living in Australia, I decided I was going to buy a Mini Cooper because I didn't see them anywhere on the road. And I was going to be the coolest person because I was going to be driving a Mini Cooper. Now, as soon as I bought a Mini Cooper, what do you think I seen everywhere? A Mini Cooper. And I'm sure you have had this experience in your own life where you buy something, whether it's a car or whether it's a shirt or a brand name because you want to be the only one wearing it or having it, and then as soon as you do, you see it everywhere. Same thing I've been told happens with pregnant women. Before they get pregnant, they won't see any pregnant women anywhere. then they'll get pregnant, and all of a sudden that's all they see is pregnant women. Now, this is important because this reticular activating system and these filters can keep us from advancing in life, or can keep us from seeing opportunities that will allow us to achieve the life that we want. So let's say we have a belief about ourselves that we're overweight. Our reticular activating system holds a picture of whatever we believe to be true about ourselves. Now, if our reticular activating system is holding on to this belief that we're overweight and holding on to this picture of us being overweight, it will filter out any opportunities to lose the weight and only keep in information that allows us to stay overweight. So this is why so many people, when they go on a fad diet, they'll lose a whole bunch of weight, but then they'll gain it all back because they haven't actually changed what they believe to be true about themselves. We also see this with money. So there was an interesting study done in Australia by a job posting website called Seek. Now what they did was they posted 2 of the exact same job ad. I think it was for an accountant. So all the qualifications and all the job criteria was the same. The only difference was the pay packet. One job was a $50,000 a year job, and the other job was $150,000 a year. 95% of the people who applied only applied for the $50,000 a year job. So only 5% applied for both, even though the job ads were exactly the same. It sounds ridiculous, right? But those 95%, they didn't believe that their value or their financial worth was $150,000. So they filtered out, they deleted that opportunity to apply for that job. They just didn't even see it. And this is something that happened to me. We all tend to set a glass ceiling around what our parents made. We have this belief for some reason that if we make more than our parents, then it'll cause disconnection or some sort of issue. And so for me, my glass ceiling was set about $60,000, and I wanted to make more. But every time I worked harder, or I took on new opportunities, or I took on new job roles, or took on new promotions, I still couldn't seem to break through that $60,000 a year barrier until I dealt with that belief. Now, the other thing is the language that we use when we're setting goals, or even when we're talking in day-to-day life. So there's a couple words that I want to talk about and look at getting you to remove them from your vocabulary altogether. Now, the first word is not. So when we use the word not, our unconscious mind doesn't actually process it. Doesn't process not, doesn't process can't, don't, any derivative of not. So I'm going to give you an example. Don't think of a purple dog. So you all have a picture of a purple dog in your head right now, because what happens is your unconscious mind has to get a picture of what you've said, and then your conscious mind has to come in over top and say, no, don't think about that. Think of a yellow tree. And so now you all have a yellow tree. Now, when we use words like don't, can't, not, we're actually communicating at a conscious level. But our unconscious is very suggestive, and it takes on suggestion really easy and will hold a picture of whatever we've just said or we're told to do in our reticular activating system. So if a parent says to a kid, don't run out onto the road or don't spill on the carpet, the picture that they've just put in the child's reticular activating system is spilling on the carpet and running on the road. When we set goals like, I don't want to have debt anymore, the picture that our reticular activating system holds on to is of debt. If we say, I want to start working out because I don't want to be overweight anymore, the picture that we hold on to is a picture of us being overweight. And so we'll filter out any opportunities to get out of debt, to lose weight. The child will filter out any opportunities to not run on the road and to not spill on the carpet. So if you find yourself accidentally using this word, follow up the sentence with what you want to see instead. So don't run on the road, stay on the sidewalk instead. tell mom to go out and get your ball for you, okay? So that is not. The next word is but. Now this is an interesting one because it negates everything that came before it. So if I was to say you did really well today, but you didn't make that sale, the emphasis and the important part of the sentence is on the not making the sale. So you could just swap it around and still use the word but. However, that doesn't work with our unconscious mind. So this is our conscious mind and this is our unconscious mind. In between the two, Australian researcher Pip Mackay and Australian coach Pip Mackay postulates that we have what's called a gatekeeper in between the two. Now the job of this gatekeeper is to keep us safe. Our unconscious mind is highly suggestive and it will take on suggestion from people talking to it or talking to the person when the gatekeeper is open. Now I'm sure you've met people in your life who you do not want to be taking suggestion on from, either because you don't value their opinion, you don't think they have their life together, or maybe you just get that feeling that that person is unsafe. So whenever those people come around, your gatekeeper closes so that you can't take on suggestion from them. So if we start with a negative and we were to say, look, you missed that sale today, even if we say, but you did really well, the gatekeeper is already closed, because when we start with a negative, the unconscious mind feels like it's under attack, and so it closes off the gatekeeper and doesn't hear any of the rest of what you have to say. This is where using the feedback sandwich, so the positive, negative, positive, comes in handy, because we start with the positive, so you did really well today. Now, what most people do is they use the word but there, but that will cause the gatekeeper once again to close. So what we want to say is you did really well today and you did miss that sale. Overall, you're doing really well and there is some room for improvement, but you're getting much better. And so we want to put the word and in between these two so that the unconscious mind knows that it's safe and it doesn't shut the gatekeeper on us. And so everything I'm talking about today is going into your unconscious mind because you're choosing to watch this video. So your unconscious mind has decided that I'm safe enough to listen to. So thank you for that. All right. The next word is try. Now, unless we're talking about rugby, and try being the goal that you score in rugby, there is no such thing as try. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll know that Yoda says do or do not. There is no try. And there probably is no more true quote that exists in this world. When we say the word try, what we suggest to our own unconscious mind is that whatever the task is not important enough for us to fully commit to, and so it's okay if we don't follow through. So if you say to yourself, I'll try and go to the gym tomorrow, what you've just said is your health is not important enough to commit to, so it's okay if we fail. You're giving yourself an excuse before you even start the task or the project. Now, when you say the word try to other people, so if I was to say to a client, I'll try and call you tomorrow, what I've just suggested to their unconscious mind is that they aren't important enough for me to fully commit to, and that can further breed or keep a cycle of not being good enough going in their mind. Now, the last word I want to talk about is hard, ugly, any other negative word that exists. So when we have a thought, so say I want to move my finger. This is my brain. What happens is my brain sends an electrical signal down the spinal cord, across the nerves in my arm, down to my hand, to my finger. Now here we have the muscle fiber. So we've got this electrical signal that's coming down this way. Now there's a gap called a synapse in between the nerve and the muscle fiber. They don't directly connect. So what happens is this electrical signal has to become a chemical signal. And it becomes a chemical signal through what we call neurotransmitters, and you may have heard of those. Now, a neurotransmitter is like a key, and on the surface of the muscle cell, there's these receptors, which is the lock. And if that key fits into the lock, then the muscle cell will be turned on and I'll be able to move my finger. Now, initially, they thought that only our muscle cells had these receptors for neurotransmitters. But what they're finding now is that our skin cells and our immune cells and our stomach cells and our throat cells and every single cell in our body has these receptors for those neurotransmitters. So when we have a thought, we literally bathe every cell in our body in those thoughts. Now, if you haven't seen some of my other videos, we have an average of 80% of our thoughts being negative in a day. So for 80% of your day, you are bathing every cell in your body in negativity. Now, people will wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I look so ugly. But then wonder why their skin isn't bright and shiny and vibrant, or wonder why they break out. Or they'll get up and say things to themselves like, oh, I'm so fat. And they'll wonder why they then retain water and they get bloated through the day, or crave foods that they know aren't good for them and are going to make them bloated. So when we tell ourselves that a task is going to be hard, or that we're unhealthy, or that we're ugly, we're telling every cell in our body just that. So this is the only time I would encourage you to use the word not. So if you don't believe that it's going to be hard, if you believe that a task is going to be hard, instead say not easy. Because on a conscious level, you're saying the same thing. Hard, not easy, same. On an unconscious level, instead of telling your cells that something's going to be hard, because the unconscious mind doesn't process the word not, you've just told them that it's going to be easy, and it will be easier to get the task done. Same with if you feel like you're not beautiful or not pretty. Say not pretty, or whatever it is, instead of ugly. If you feel like you're overweight or you're fat, say unhealthy, or not healthy, as opposed to fat. Now, obviously, we need to go in and we need to do some work around why you have those beliefs about being ugly or about being overweight. But in the short term, we can change our language, and that will have a massive impact on what we are telling our cells in our body, and it'll have a massive impact on the filters that we have set. And when we can open those filters up by changing our language and changing our beliefs about ourselves and about the world around us, then we'll start to see different things. So the saying, I'll believe it when I see it, isn't so true, because if we don't believe something, then we won't see it. Okay? So I hope that gives you some things to think about, and let me know how you go with changing your language. If you need some help, you can click on the link below and book a session with me, and we can chat about how to do that. See ya.